Knowles on the News. Susan Knowles.
Hi, everyone. This is Susan Knowles, and this is a special edition of Stand for Truth Radio called Knowles on the News. There has been so much happening in the news lately. I don't know about you, but it's not only that things are happening each week. It's day to day, and sometimes it's even hour to hour that things are happening so rapidly that it's really hard to keep up sometimes. And not everything that is happening, of course, is being reported in the news. And I want to try to go over some, I think, what are really important issues that we can talk about that have been happening in the news, just to give you some idea in case you're having a hard time keeping up like most of us are. I don't know if you've been watching the hearings in regards to Planned Parenthood. I don't know. For me, it's been really difficult trying to watch that hearing. To sit there and hear the head of Planned Parenthood, Cecile Richards, talking, it's just amazing to me. It's kind of like one of those things where she's not really answering the question. She's sort of giving the answers, these pat answers that you can obviously tell that she's practiced on before she got there and how she's going to answer each question that might come her way. But I think one of the amazing things, and other than the fact that she denies everything, denies that they sell body parts or even have body parts. I mean, it's just amazing, like I said, to hear her talk. But the salary the woman makes, absolutely over the top salary. It's over $500,000 a year that she makes in salary. So you could understand from that alone why she's trying so desperately to keep her job, to sit there and make you think that nothing at all is happening at Planned Parenthood. We're just helping women. What's the problem? We care about your health issues. Oh my gosh. And to listen to that, just to sit there and listen to people who have, in my opinion, lost their souls somewhere along the way and are talking about dismembering babies and killing babies as if it were nothing. And you wonder, how do you get up and look at yourself in the mirror? I mean, $500,000. I'm going to need more than that, when I'm sold my soul, to be able to get up and look myself in the mirror each day after doing what I know that I do if I were at Planned Parenthood. But really, do you not believe in a life after this world, that you're going to have to explain yourself and what you've been doing and actually what your job is? And if that's not bad enough, we have a House report that talks about how Planned Parenthood and its affiliates have spent millions in recent years on blowout parties, first-class travel, and lucrative salaries. And this is according to Representative Jason Chavitz. So here's an organization that claims, oh gosh, we need so much money because we care so much about women's health, that they're just spending money hand over fist in, first-class travel, all these big parties, sending money overseas. And they continue just to need more of our money because they care so much about women. According to the report, Planned Parenthood spent over $5.1 million on travel in 2013, or nearly $14,000 a day. Now imagine that for a minute. Imagine what you and your family could do with $14,000 a day. Now, for me, because it's connected to Planned Parenthood, to me, that's blood money to me. I wouldn't want to have anything to do with it, not a dime. But let's say that you were working for an organization that you felt really good about, and you were getting $14,000 a day that you could have in your pockets rather than somebody having a party. Can you imagine what you could do, what benefit you could have for your family if you were able to take that money and do good with it? It's just absolutely amazing. And he said, on the report, it says, on top of that, several affiliates reported spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on travel. And of course it said Planned Parenthood, they can't just take a regular flight. Oh no. They've got to book first class or charter. And according to Cecile Richards, of course, she doesn't personally travel first class. Why is that? You have your own plane? I mean, did anybody ask that question? Did they say, hey, do you have your own private jet that you take places? Is that why you don't have to travel first class? What is it? But probably at the time, it may have escaped the attention of those people. Now, the report also said that Planned Parenthood gave nearly $22 million in grants over 5 years to its Planned Parenthood Action Fund. And that's a fund that's legally able to do lobbying activity. Again, we care so much about your health, women. We really, really do. We're going to spend all of our money on your health. Don't consider, gosh, we're just traveling first class. You know we have to do that. You know that we have to spend money and getting the best accommodations wherever we go. And we all know, looking at the films and the videos that we've seen of all the body parts and everything else from Planned Parenthood, allegedly, that they love their salad and wine. So, wine can sometimes get expensive. You understand that, right? But we do mammograms. Oh, wait, we don't do mammograms at Planned Parenthood. But we pay for you to have mammograms, maybe. Come on. How much longer do we have to put up with this farce? Everybody knows that. And what's so great about these, the $22 million in grants that go to the lobbying activity is that, in turn, according to this report, the money goes almost exclusively to Democratic candidates. So, if you're a Democrat, you're gonna want to vote to keep Planned Parenthood open because they're making extra money for you. They're putting all of that great work they're doing for women towards helping you as well. I mean, it's a win-win situation, right? So you're not going to go in there and bite the hand that feeds you. You're going to go in there and say, by gosh, we need this. Women need Planned Parenthood. Enough already. Babies are dying, and you're lining your pockets. Do you not see that there's anything wrong with that? This is something that really, the American people, a lot of us, we're totally awake. We're totally aware. We know exactly what's going on. And we have people in Congress that we put there in faith that they were going to be able to do their jobs. And they're not doing their jobs. Children are dying. Lobbyists and Democrat candidates, according to the report, are lining their pockets. And money is being spent hand over fist, not for women's health, but for individuals' wealth. And if all of that weren't bad enough, the report also says that over 40 executives earned salaries of $200,000 or more between 2009 and 2013. And again, she acknowledged, this is Cecile Richards, acknowledged at the questioning in Tuesday's hearing this week, that her annual compensation is $520,000. Blows the mind. I don't think people who are running huge car companies make that much. Maybe they do, but my gosh. It makes your eyes roll back in your head. Oh, and then, we had a Democrat, God bless her, Carolyn Maloney, the Democrat from New York, criticized the questioning as accusing the Republican of beating up on a woman for making a good salary. Sweetie, that's not a good salary. That's like the best there is. And here we go again with the war on women rhetoric. They just can't let that go. It's worked so long and so well. They've just got to keep that going at any opportunity. It's getting pathetic. And also, according to committee reports, about 41% of Planned Parenthood's income, their $1.3 billion with a B dollar revenue, $1.3 billion in revenue is from government funding. 41% of that. It says most of these funds are simply reimbursements for services through Medicaid, but $60 million comes from Title X funding through the National Family Planning Program. And when they asked Ms. Richards about, all the travel and the other expenses, she noted that, the organization is in all 50 states, and they work overseas. They're in Latin America and in Africa because they do a lot of great work there. And, just the same type of work they do here. And she said, we don't make any profit off of federal money. Maybe you don't make profit in the way that we normally know the meaning of profit, but you profit. You profit. And then once again, here come the Democrats coming right after the Republicans. Because why is that? Why are they so ready to defend Planned Parenthood? Just like I said. Where does the money? Follow the money trail. Follow the money trail. Lining the pockets of Democratic candidates from the lobbyist industry, according to the report. So they've got to run in, and they said, once again, House Republicans have wasted taxpayer time and money to conduct a wasteful investigation into baseless allegations. And, of course, that was from our friend Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And she went on to say, their efforts to try to score cheap political points instead of governing on behalf of hard-working families is exactly why the American people are frustrated with Washington. Oh, Debbie, how long did it take you to write that little paragraph up? You knew it was coming, right? You knew at the end of it you were going to have to make some statement that sounded as ridiculous as like every other time that you talked. So you had to work on a little paragraph. Let me just word this just right. I want to get the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and I want to make sure that I point out just how horrible the Republicans are for wanting to save babies. Give me a break. And, I don't know what was worse. I don't know if the report in and of itself and everything that Planned Parenthood was bad, or if it was the comments after the article. I mean, you could kind of see and judge where you are and where the state of the world is today when you look at the comments sometimes that people write. And I know this because at times when I write my articles on The Blaze, and I get people that, sometimes it's obvious they didn't even read the article. But other times they just, maybe they're having a bad day and they just want to spew. Well, okay. After this article in regards to Planned Parenthood and all the horrible things that they're doing and all the waste of the money that they're spending it on and this exorbitant salaries that they're getting, here comes some of the comments. The kicker, Trump has a long history of donating to Planned Parenthood. LOL. And another woman by the name of Sparkle, and I won't even tell you the rest of it, heck, I will donate if they abort Christians. And then she writes, well, that's who has the most abortions in the United States. Well, sweetheart, let me tell you, Sparkle, since there are more Christians in the United States because this is a country based on Christianity and founded upon Christian principles, if people are getting abortions in the United States, it probably is more Christians. Way to go, Sparkle. And then she wrote, I know most abortions are Christian girls hiding sex from their parents. Is giving back part of your welfare a legitimate charitable contribution? And then somebody else, another genius, writes, God wants Planned Parenthood to be funded. GOPers made it so today. And it just goes on and on. I mean, the comments just get worse and worse. People making the comments, they just look at it as a big joke. Like this is just one more indication where the Republicans are trying to take our reproductive rights away. All the time, just not even giving 1 ounce of consideration, not one moment of thought to the fact that human beings are being killed. Not one thought. It really sometimes it just blows the mind how people can think the way that they do and never take a moment to really hear what they're saying or understand the ramifications of what they're not doing, meaning that they're not getting out there and trying to stop Planned Parenthood from doing what they do. And you just sometimes have to just shake your head and just pray, because that's all you can do. And the other thing you can do, though, is pressure Congress and continue to tell them, you know what, we got rid of Boehner, you're going to be next. You're going to go next. We're tired of it. And speaking of that, oh my gosh, if Kevin McCarthy gets in there and takes over for John Boehner, you are getting one and the same. And it's not because the guy's from California. It's because the guy is a clone of John Boehner, really. I mean, he's from that good old boy rhino establishment, even though he's not a rhino per se. He's of the same mindset. He didn't want to shut down government either for anything like Planned Parenthood. Oh my gosh, how can we shut down the government for that? Come on, we're not going to do that. He's not taking anything seriously. He's not going to listen to the American people any more than John Boehner did. We all know that. We need someone else. There are a lot of people who say, let's get Trey Gowdy. I think Trey Gowdy would be great. I mean, he's great at just getting right to the bottom of things and just really going for the jugular. I love that about him. I can't imagine having been against him in court. It's kind of like one of those things where you walk in there and you see Trey Gowdy and you're knowing that you're on the other side and you're going to have to debate against him. It's like, okay, Your Honor, we give up. Here you go. You win. Bye. It's just not even worth it. Not when you see Trey. But I read an article today that one congressman was saying, Trey is going to be retiring at the end of his term. He just wants to get the heck out of Dodge. He wants to go back to South Carolina. And that's really sad. If that means that maybe he won't be the Speaker of the House or that he wouldn't want to run or not run, but be a cabinet member, let's say, in somebody's administration. And I think it's really a sad thing. While at the same time, I could really understand why you want to get out of Washington, D.C. I mean, I think after a while, if you stay there too long, you just lose your soul. So I could see him just saying, I've had enough. I want to get back to South Carolina. And I believe that, his family, he doesn't get to see them all that often. And he's probably just really missing what life used to be before he got involved in all of the political mayhem that we've seen in Washington, D.C. of late. But I do know that he said that if there was a tie, I believe, with the Speaker of the House and we couldn't decide who, that he would accept the nomination or whatever, and, he would take the position. So perhaps the congressman is maybe jumping the gun or, hasn't. I want to hear it from Trey Gowdy. If Trey says it, I'm probably going to believe it more. And who knows? I mean, people do change their minds, and he may have an opportunity to do that down the road. He may look at something and say, it's worth me staying. Maybe there's an administration that I can really work with and do some good in. So we'll see where that goes. And I spoke earlier in a short segment. I want to talk a little bit more about it here, talking about Russia being in Syria. This is very serious, and I know I don't have to tell you this. You absolutely know that this is a very serious move on the part of Russia to go into Syria. And they're going in there, of course, with an allegiance, an alignment, or whatever you want to call it, with Iran. They're really cementing that alliance that they have with each other. And, apparently they're going in there because we couldn't do our jobs. We said we were going to go in there to destroy ISIS, and ISIS is only getting stronger. Russia has a Navy base there, and they're going to protect their assets. But as I mentioned in another segment, what they're trying to do is they're going in there to take over territory. They really are. Russia is in the business of becoming a big empire. They want to do everything they can to see the old Soviet Union when that was all together and how much power they had. Putin doesn't like the fact that there was a demise in the Soviet Union, and he would like nothing more than to wheel and deal and get back all the power. And, once he's in Syria, what's the incentive to stop? Why not go into Israel and take what you want from Israel? You're right there. You've got Iran working with you. Pretty soon Iran's going to have over $150 billion from the U.S. for the Iran nuclear deal. So why not just, make good use of that money, make good use of the support, and go on in there? There's no reason not to. And what are we going to do about it? What have we done about anything? I don't know. It's at the point now where basically Putin's telling the United States, why don't you just run on home, run along, go on back, go on back, little boys. We don't need you here. Get out of the airspace. Let the men come in and do the job that you couldn't do. And so far the United States is saying, no, we're not going to leave, but how long are we going to stay? What are we going to do? Stick around and do what? Stick around and watch it all happen? It's all happening anyway. And they've already had an airstrike. Russia's already begun, the airstrikes are on. So stick around and watch, boys, from the U.S. if you like, but, we're here to get the job done. It's very frightening, as I said before in my other segment, there's a lot of people who believe that's Ezekiel 38 and 39 happening right before our eyes, Gog and Magog. And it's setting it up. It sure does look like that. Now, where this will be the final action, I don't know. I don't know how long that it will take them to get into Israel. I really don't know. Maybe they're already there. I mean, there have been rumors in the news that there have been airstrikes coming in from Iran. So, we're getting closer and closer. If not Ezekiel 38 and 39, definitely, we are certainly seeing what looks like the beginnings of that. We're in a very dangerous times right now. The Middle East is it's really on fire. I know a couple of days ago I talked to you about Afghanistan, and the Afghan Taliban now is recruiting boys from Kunduz, K-U-N-D-U-Z. They had gone in there and taken over the northern Afghanistan city of Kunduz. And now what they're doing is they're going door to door in that city to take young boys as recruits, quote unquote, and they're making them, they're forcing them into working for them or being their sex slaves or whatever they may do with them. And they're also using loudspeakers to ask the people to set up Sharia law. And are asking people just to go about their business. Don't look at the elephant that's in the room. Just keep focused on what it was you were doing before we came in here and took over. Oh, and by the way, we're going to go ahead and take your little boys from you. Don't worry about it, though. Just go about your business. Oh, and, one last request. Why don't you come and help us bury our dead bodies? Nothing to worry about, right? And there's reports that there's no electricity in the city. The food was in short supply. And the price of bread doubled overnight. And there's also reports that 10 bank branches in the city had been looted. So, again, that's just a precursor. If something like that happened here or we had some type of event, hopefully it wouldn't be somebody coming in to take over our city, but nothing in the world today is beyond reason, I suppose. But if we had something like that, some event that occurred, you could see that happening. I mean, the price of bread would go up. People would be just in a panic. Looting would occur. I mean, really, and when people talk about being prepared, this is what they're talking about. And I know people are saying, "Oh my gosh, well that would never happen here. We wouldn't have anything like that." You have no idea what's coming. This world in the place that it is now, you really can't be sure of anything. At least I can't. So I really think having water and food supplies on hand would be something that would be wise for anybody. For fires, anything. I mean, there's been several times in San Diego that I've lived there that I've had to, my husband and I both, evacuate due to fires. And you're gone. You're out of your house. You're gone for sometimes a week. And you have to leave in a hurry. And you don't know where you're going. Typically, you don't have an ability at times to get all the supplies that you need. I mean, even in that situation, that's bad enough. But if you can't get somewhere, if there's no food around and you're sitting there waiting for somebody that's, coming in their case, to occupy your city, I mean, what are you going to do? And for people in America, it could be, some flood, some national disaster, whatever occurred. And if people aren't a little bit more prepared than they generally are, who knows? I mean, you'll have to sit there and wait for someone else to come in and take care of you. And nobody wants to be in that position. So maybe think a little bit about sort of what's happening elsewhere and how something similar to that could happen to you, and how maybe it's time to start looking at preparing for situations, unforeseen situations. And then we have a report from the Daily Mail. Now, I didn't see this in any other websites, just one from UK, because we can't really talk about that too much here, I suppose. But there's an undercover video, apparently, in which Clinton's campaign worker is caught breaking election law by registering Nevada Hispanics to vote with meme, like a meme photo of Trump that reads, "This is my resting B.I. blank blank, face." You get the picture. Basically, he was a canvasser, was captured on tape using it to lure Nevada Hispanics in to register to vote. He then told them in Spanish that Trump is a giant clown and that Hillary Clinton is very good. That's where we needed Jeb Bush to be there to go, "Hola," and then bring the crowds in. Because Jeb, did you know that Jeb speaks Spanish? He really wants everybody to know that, so hola. Now, according to Nevada election law, it's a felony to advise anyone about how to vote when helping them register. Penalties range from 1 to 4 years in prison. Do you think he will ever see prison time? I personally don't. Now, of course, it says in the article that the Clinton campaign has no comment, but they've been caught on camera before. These are the Hillary Clinton canvassers, supposedly, saying, "Do whatever you can, whatever you get away with, just do it." Wow, that should be their campaign slogan for Hillary. Just do it. Do whatever you can, whatever you can get away with. I mean, wouldn't that be a great campaign slogan? Jeb's got hola and Hillary's got do whatever you can get away with, right? Because I think in some respects of what we're seeing with Benghazi and emails and all that, she pretty much is getting away with a lot of stuff. And that's how it appears anyway. And I guess that he had another message for the people that he was trying to get them to register to vote by kind of telling them how. And I'm gonna say this in Spanish, and I hope that Jeb is impressed. Supposedly he said, "Hillary Clinton es muy bueno. Nosotros trabajando para la campaña de Hillary aquí en Las Vegas. Necesito el apoyo de la gente en la comunidad." In other words, he said, Hillary Clinton is very good. We are working for Hillary's campaign here in Las Vegas. I need the support of people in the community. Well, hopefully your community is going to be those in federal prison. But I really doubt very seriously that you're going to spend any time in prison. In fact, I think you're going to be right back out there canvassing the neighborhoods in Las Vegas and probably elsewhere in no time at all. Now, I don't know if you heard about this. It didn't seem like it was a big deal in the news. Again, maybe it's because so much of this happens every single day and every hour on the hour that it no longer captures the attention of the American public, which is sad. But a student today shot and injured the principal at a school in South Dakota. It used to be that, again, everybody would say, oh, man, those people in California, they're so crazy, and that it happened only in California. So I think, now this is proof that everything that we used to think was just limited to places like California, New York, places like that, now it's all over. Luckily, the principal was only wounded in the arm and was in good condition. Once he shot the principal, he was tackled by two employees. I think one was the assistant principal and the school's athletic director. And apparently he also had a knife with him. And he got into some type of argument with the principal and started shooting him because, he watches TV and that's what he's been told to do. He reads it in the books. He sees it on the games he plays on videos. I don't know. I have no idea what would possess someone to do that. And yes, I know there are mental health issues. I get that. But, we see this so often. There's got to be a reason. It has nothing to do with guns for all those people who may listen to this on the left, which I doubt there are any, and saying, oh, well, it's a Second Amendment problem. No, it's not. It's not a Second Amendment problem. There's somewhere along the line we have failed to teach properly what we should have taught children growing up. As adults, you have to be a role model, and if that's not happening, you're going to have more and more things like this. And as more and more that we see this on TV all the time. And to me, it's gotten worse. The violence on TV, the sex on TV, whatever, it has gotten worse. So, if you're a kid growing up in this day and age and you're allowed to watch all of that, nobody seems to stop you. Nobody seems to think it's bad. Nobody tells you right from wrong. Nobody teaches you anymore. This is the type of behavior that people can expect to see. And, what I found interesting, here we are in South Dakota, right? I guess they called the authorities. And this is the part that kind of struck me that has probably a little more meaning to the message here than I want to know. But they said that the authorities came in droves, which again, that's a good thing. That people are getting there, trying to stop anything else, making sure everybody else is safe. Great. But it's interesting to see who came, reportedly. It was FBI agents, ATF agents, several sheriffs and police agencies and officers with the Department of Homeland Security. I didn't even know South Dakota had all that. And if South Dakota has all that around that small little town, what are we looking at in terms of other towns in bigger states and bigger cities? Kind of frightening when you think about, like I said, that subtle message that was in this article that I think was overlooked. And how do you know you're doing poorly in the race when you're a Democrat? Well, typically it's when people try to avoid being with you, being seen with you, answering questions about you. That's when you kind of know that maybe you're not doing so well in the campaign trail. After introducing Clinton, that's Hillary, as the next president in 2014, Kentucky Democrat Jack Conway dodged a question about the presidential race in a debate this past Wednesday. Now, it's really amazing because this man who is the Democrats' nominee for governor in the state just declined to say who he would support for president next year. In fact, he went out on a limb a little further, and he said, I'm gonna have to say that I would probably back Vice President Joe Biden because out of respect for my friendship with his son. And that's when if you're Hillary, you're not doing so well. And again, in 2014, he was all for her. He goes, I have a distinct honor tonight. I stand here on this stage where soon you will hear from the next president of the United States. Yeah, now enter crickets, because he no longer wants to talk about her even. She's doing so poorly, that even a Democrat who endorsed her last year, hasn't been that long, last year is now saying, oh God, please don't even mention her name. I don't want to even act like I know her. And also in news, have you been watching and really listening to what's been going on at the UN and in regards to Australia and in particular Agenda 2030? If you don't know what Agenda 2030 is, some have described it as Agenda 21 on steroids. And I would say that it makes Agenda 21 look like child's play. Now, speaking to the 70th United Nations General Assembly, and that's when you know you're in trouble immediately when there's made mention that it's anything to do with the United States, right there. Put that on your checklist. Every time you hear the United Nations, you want to pause and just ask yourself, how bad is it going to be this time? In my opinion, nothing really good comes out of the United Nations. But anyway, Julie Bishop, the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Australia, commended the unanimous endorsement and adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals by the UN and its member states. And this part should really scare you too. She said, should we realize all 17 goals, we will transform our world for the betterment of humankind. So we've heard the word transform before. We heard that with Obama and transforming America, and he really has accomplished that for the most part. And for the betterment of humankind, that means global, that means one world order, that type of thing. And she also called for the collective, where we heard that before, the collective participation of all countries in the combat against climate change. Who's been pushing climate change? Okay, let's see. Obama, Pope Francis, and others, saying the phenomenon is a challenge for all nations and decisive action is required to effectively address it, to address the hoax. Those are my words. The climate change hoax. Now, according to this lady, Australia has established a $50 million fund to accelerate support for gender equality in development programs it delivers in the Indo-Pacific region. We must step up the fight against the global scourge of violence against women and girls. Well, I can tell you where to go if you want to start. Why don't you just go over there to, I don't know, wherever ISIS is? Why don't you start there? Why don't you take your $50 million and start there instead of trying to build a one world order someplace else that is going to combat climate change and other non-existent things? Why don't we work on some real issues? But why don't you work on those issues by yourself? Why do we need a collective? Because we need a collective if we want to build a one world order, a global world order where everybody is connected. And let me just give you some idea of what this sustainable development, this Agenda 2030 is all about. Let me read a little bit from the preamble. This agenda is a plan of action for people, planet, and prosperity. It also seeks to strengthen universal peace in larger freedom. We recognize that eradicating poverty in all its forms and dimensions, including extreme poverty, is the greatest global challenge and an indispensable requirement for sustainable development. Now, it sounds like great goals. You know, they want to end poverty and hunger in all forms and dimensions, and determined to protect the planet from degradation. And then here's where it goes sour. Including through sustainable consumption and production, sustainably managing its natural resources, and taking urgent action on climate change so that it can support the needs of the present and future generations. So if you like driving your car, you can forget about it. If you like your barbecues in the backyard, you can probably just forget about it. If you like doing anything that makes a carbon footprint, you're going to have more difficulty should this pass. And let's go on with prosperity. We are determined to ensure that all human beings can enjoy prosperous and fulfilling lives, and that economic, social, and technological progress occurs in harmony with nature. Did we just go back to the 1960s, but in just a little bit more dangerous ways than the 1960s ever thought they could be? In harmony with nature. And we are determined to foster peaceful, just, and inclusive societies which are free from fear and violence. There can be no sustainable development without peace, and no peace without sustainable development. I don't know about you, but the more I read, the scarier this gets. And if you're not afraid at this point, then you must be sleeping. Now, here's where it gets really scary. If it wasn't already scary, now we're getting into the really scary parts. We are determined to mobilize the means required to implement this agenda through a revitalized global partnership for sustainable development based on a spirit of strengthened global solidarity, focused in particular on the needs and with the participation of all countries, all stakeholders, and all people. Now, let me just ask you, in your lifetime, in your parents' lifetime, in your grandparents' lifetime, did they ever once tell you, do you ever remember one time hearing that there was something that every single person, every country, every nation, everybody got behind and supported? No, you didn't. And guess what? You never will. There's nothing that you can't take people with so many differences. And I'm talking about two people in the same family. They're different, okay? Your neighbor, you're different from your neighbor. Everybody's different from the person next to them. There are not two people that think alike. There are not two people out of a group of people. You're not going to have everybody in agreement. It's not going to happen. This is insane. It really is. I mean, you're reading this and you're like, oh my God, this is headed down such a bizarre path. And listen to their words. This is an agenda of unprecedented scope and significance. It is accepted by all countries and is applicable to all, taking into account different national realities, capacities, and levels of development, and respecting national policies and priorities. These are universal goals. There you go. Look at those words. Universal goals and targets, which involve the entire world, developed and developing countries alike. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. We're going to get Iran. They're just going to jump on board, and they're going to say, you know what, United States, I know we chant death to America a lot, but gosh, let's just, we were just joking. Put that aside, and let's just all get along. Global warming, this is something, climate change, we really need to work together to do this. And we really need to work on feeding the hungry. We just can't have that. We need, better idea. Everybody just needs to be equal, don't you think? I mean, I know in the country of Iran, that's what we do. Everybody's equal. Come on. And we're going to see ISIS laying down their swords, putting down their matches and their oil cans, gas cans, whatever. And they're going to say, you know what? I know we've done some killings. Yes, I realize that. But we're going to work together. We're going to work with the rest of the world to fulfill this goal that the UN talked about today, because we think it's so great. We're going to be peaceful from this day forward. And the women that we think are not equal to us, Sharia law, okay, all right. But we're just going to put that aside. We're going to put aside Sharia law. We're going to all come together, going to hold hands. We're going to sing Kumbaya. It's going to be great. And I'm so glad the UN came up with Agenda 2030 so that it could bring us all together. Jeez, why didn't we think of this before? And you're going to have Palestine and Israel working together on this. I mean, what could be better? Really? What could be better? And if we'd known that something like Agenda 2030, if we could have done that in the past and been able to accomplish all of this, why didn't we think of that? I mean, really, why didn't we think of that? And great news, everyone. The new goals, the 17 goals and targets, they'll come into effect on January 1, 2016. Isn't that exciting? And they will guide the decisions that they take over the next 15 years. So over the next 15 years, you're going to see so many wonderful, wonderful changes. And let me just give you some of the goals, okay? In poverty in all of its forms everywhere. In hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Sustainable agriculture. Wonder what that could mean. Ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all ages. Inclusive and equitable quality education. Does that include Common Core? And promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So lifelong learning, does that mean paying for everyone's college until age, 100 or until they die, whichever comes first? Gender equality, availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. So ensure availability for and management of water. Kind of like what California, you know how well managed right now the water is? It's so well managed that we're in a drought. We don't have any. Government, when they're involved, they do such a great job. Gender equality and empower all women and girls. I guess the boys don't need it, so we're leaving them out. Promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth. Don't you just love the words? So they can't just say promote economic growth. It's promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable. That, look all of those words up. We don't have time to go into them tonight. Those have definite meanings that you're probably not going to like. Reduce inequality within and among countries. Social justice. Make everybody equal. Everybody on the same plane. Obama's done a great job in doing that with America, don't you think? He's kind of brought America down. We were once looked up to, and no longer are we there. Make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. There you go with those words again. Kind of like, California has done when they've let out all the non-risk, the low-risk criminals that have gone out, or having illegal immigrants who are in the country, that commit crime, kill people, that type of thing. It just goes on and on. It's amazing. Another one, conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. Protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation and halt biodiversity loss. Okay, if you haven't gotten it by now, if you don't understand what all of this means, let me just put it forth in simple terms for you. You are going to be controlled. There, I said it. Everything you eat, everything you do, everything that you want to drive, everything that you want to do to entertain yourself, the clothes you wear, everything is going to be scrutinized. And it's going to have to be not only, well, we can do it here in the United States. I can't help it that they can't do it in third world countries. Oh, no. We will get rid of that attitude because we're going to have sustainable equality among nations and within nations. So no more of this, well, we have the resources, we'll just use them. No, pretty much I would say by reading some of this that the resources that you have, if they're not equal, let's say, to some other third world country out there, well, then we might just take those resources over to that third world country so they can have the same balance of resources that you do in the United States. And are we going to pay for those? Well, no. Why should we do that? United States, you make more money than any third world country. Why should we have to do anything but receive your gift? Thank you. You know, this is just another way to control us. You know, I'm hoping that I can get a guest that I had on before, Patrick Wood. You may have remembered listening to his show and his book that he wrote, Technocracy Rising. I really want him to come back on and just talk to us about what all of this means, because he looks at this stuff sort of in depth, and he would know more about, you know, what's going on, where it's headed, what we're looking at, and just how bad off we are. I think some of the things I've read tonight, it really scares me. I mean, it truly, truly scares me. And in the past, I would have said, you know what, don't worry about it. That's just the UN. That's what the UN wants. But the United States isn't going to go along with that. Well, guess what? That's no longer true. We have a president in the White House who just about does everything he can to do whatever the UN wants him to do. So, and it's funny, I heard Glenn Beck say something today that really scared me. And he said that, you know, someday he wouldn't be surprised that Obama was the head of the UN. You know, I wouldn't be surprised at that for 1 second. I think that it would be a dream come true for the UN to have someone like Obama be in control, and at that point probably have the United States pretty much locked up, and then they can control everything, huh? Wouldn't that be something? Obama kind of controlling the entire world at that point? Because wouldn't we at that point perhaps have the UN over all of this, which is every country? One world order, right? Something to think about. And I really do hope that you spend some time looking at Agenda 2030, that you really look up those words and what they mean, sustainable and sustainable development, and what are the implications of all that really is. I think that you will be quite surprised when you see that. And if you haven't read, I know Glenn Beck did a book on Agenda 21, you know, go read that book or some other book or whatever to get some idea about what Agenda 21 is all about. We see it now in our cities, but it's very subtle. You know, I think one of the things, the most ridiculous thing that I've seen, but it's an example of Agenda 21. There was a community in California that didn't want cars coming through their community because it was near a golf course, and they wanted, you know, this beautiful open space that no one else could bother with, you know, fumes, you know, carbon monoxide fumes, people, you know, carbon footprints of automobiles, you know, that type of thing. Nasty things like traffic, you know, cars, people in cars, how dare they? So what did they do? You know how on a 2-lane highway, you know, in a little road in your community, they put a line down the road, right? That's typically what happens. One car passes on the on the left going one way and the other direction. The one on the right goes in whichever way. Oh, but no. They decided that's going to bring traffic. If we have a white line down the middle of the road or double yellow line, whatever, we have 2 lanes. That means cars can come in and cars can come out. We don't want cars at all. So here's the solution that they came up with. And I kid you not, they made the white line into these wiggly lines. So if you were driving a car, you first swerved over to the right, and you came back to the left, and then you went back to the right, and then you went back to the left. Swervy lines all the way down the middle of the road. And cars were like, oh my God, we can't drive here. This is insane. Because you'd have to drive at about 1 mile an hour to avoid going over the line and trying to stay within the lines and not get a ticket. Now, I don't know what happened in the conclusion of that. Hopefully that neighborhood, somebody said, hey, enough. I know this is California and maybe you were smoking when you did the road, but enough is enough. Enough with your Agenda 21 stuff. And again, it happens so subtly, putting smart meters on your electricity or your water. That gives the government a ton of information. How many people are using the water perhaps, what time of day, how much you're using it, when you're out on vacation and you're not home anymore. Are you using too much for a family of 4 according to these new Agenda 2030 rules? Maybe you should cut down, and maybe if you don't cut down, we're either going to penalize you by charging you a lot more money, or we're just going to start automatically shutting off your water at a certain time. When you reach a certain gallon limit, we're just going to turn it off, baby, because we have a smart meter ready to do that right here in our office. We flip a button, you're done. You think I'm joking on all this? Go look it up. Go look it all up. There's so much to learn about this and so much that we probably only know half of what's going on. And then I saw an article out there that I think all of you people are going to enjoy, especially the ones, that find it so hard to lose weight. I think you'll enjoy this. According to this article, if there was a study published recently in the Journal of Obesity Research and Clinical Practice, found that it's harder for adults today to maintain the same weight as those 20 to 30 years ago did, even at the same levels of food intake and exercise. The authors examined the data of 36,400 Americans between 1971 and 2008 and the physical activity data of 14,419 people between 88 and 2006. They grouped the data sets together by the amount of food and activity, age, and body mass index. They found a very surprising correlation. A given person in 2006 eating the same amount of calories, taking in the same quantities of macronutrients like protein and fat, and exercising the same amount as a person of the same age did in 1988 would have a body mass index that was about 2.3 points higher. In other words, people today are about 10% heavier than people were in the 1980s, even if they follow the exact same diet and exercise plan. So if you are 25, for example, you'd have to eat even less and exercise more than those older to prevent gaining weight. So for us older people, go ahead, 25-year-olds, and exercise more and eat less and enjoy yourself. Now, here's the really telling part. It's probably because of the exposure to more chemicals, pesticides, flame retardants, and the substances in food packaging might all be altering our hormonal processes and tweaking the way our bodies put on and maintain weight. That is the horrible side. And also, they talked about prescription drugs maybe causing it as well. Not very good news, not what you want to hear, not good for your body, not good for your health. I think all of us could really take this opportunity to kind of look and see what we're eating, what's in our environment and everything else, and try to live a healthier life, regardless of the age we are. Gosh. You read things like that, and it's, again, mix that with Agenda 2030, and it's all pretty scary. We have covered a ton of news today. I hope it was of help to you. Until next week, take care of yourself. God bless you.